Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a woman to society.
Then so shall you be. Hey, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome back to A Menace to Society. Y'all, I have the great privilege of speaking with Frank Grove today. Welcome back to the podcast, Frank.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm happy to be back.
And y'all have had some rebranding, huh, since we spoke. Weren't you Oklahomans for Health, and now you are?
I'm the co-founder of Oklahomans for Health, and now I'm the chair of the Vote Yes on 788 Political Action Committee and the president of the Drug Policy Reform Network of Oklahoma.
You've had an upgrade since we spoke. And I know that you have worked so tirelessly to get this ballot initiative driven. You've got your signatures, and the vote is coming up for medicinal marijuana.
Yeah, we're just a few days out now. It's on June 26th. And everybody's pushing hard on the yes and in the no camp. They've definitely found a bunch of money, apparently, probably from out of state. We're ready for the vote and putting out as many yard signs as possible and making phone calls, sending mailers. And we have grassroots network that, probably no other group has in this state as far as any other issue. So I'm pretty confident it'll pass.
Well, an overwhelming majority of Oklahomans do want this ballot initiative to pass, right?
Yeah, all the polling numbers still indicate that there's strong support. Sooner polls showed about 57% support not too long ago. And we have a lot of internal data in the campaign as well that eclipses all of that as far as volume. So our numbers look good, but we're not going to let anyone be complacent because the no campaign, they just spent $453,000 on ad buys. They definitely have the big money backing them because, there's a lot of interest in pharmaceutical industries and prison industry, and the sheriffs are especially interested in keeping this illegal because it's a primary source of revenue for them.
How sad. How very sad that they would come up with all this money with all the benefits of medicinal cannabis for the veterans and the other people suffering from PTSD and cancer and epilepsy, and the list goes on, that you'd have this influx of money right as you come to the finish line. And so many people in Oklahoma do want this.
Yeah, and really it's just a waste of money ultimately because at most they can shave a few percentage points off the margin because it's an issue that, its time has come.
And it's bipartisan. It's libertarians want this, Republicans want this, Democrats want this, people who don't have any political party affiliation want this.
Oh, exactly. There's no single demographic out there that's trying to push for this issue. I've talked to everyone from 82-year-old Baptist evangelical old woman that desperately wanted this for the children who have epilepsy to, 18-year-old young kids from the city. And it's because they've heard the stories, they know the truth, they know the failures of prohibition. And what the opposition doesn't realize is that we've been deep canvassing this state for 4 years. We've been out there educating in our communities. Our volunteers, our organizers have been across the state talking about this openly since we started petitioning. It really changed the face of Oklahoma, I believe.
Yeah, you've done a lot of work.
Well, I appreciate that. There's tons of other people out there doing just as much work, but, I just kind of fell into this over time and, made some strategic decisions that kind of helped us get there, and that's how it worked out. So I'm just glad that we were successful and have been successful so far, and we'll be on June 26th.
What kind of ads are they running against this campaign that you're driving? The people who are the no campaign.
Right now, they're pushing this Lankford ad where he just repeats smoking marijuana over and over, basically. And Lankford is one of our U.S. senators, and they're trying to drive outright lies in all of their messages. They're claiming that public smoking will be allowed, which is outright that's false.
That's not going to happen. That's propaganda. Yeah, that would never happen.
Right, exactly. Private businesses can ban you from using medical cannabis openly, just like they can ban you from vaping regardless of the laws in place. Municipalities, counties, state, they'll all have 1 to 2 years before this is implemented to update their own laws if they see fit. It's a ridiculous notion that would occur. And the other thing they're pushing is that veterinarians will be able to recommend a medical cannabis card, okay?
What? Like to horses and to sheep and goats and chickens?
No, to humans.
How the heck? When does that ever happen that a veterinarian gives you a prescription or a recommendation to use any drug? Does that happen and I don't know about it? Am I not country enough?
No, that's illegal, and it's also against their license, and they will lose their license if they did that. And interpreted that way, but ultimately the health department is never going to accept a recommendation signed by a veterinarian. We use the word physician, and it's the plain meaning rule, and it's used hundreds of times in the state statutes, but they're just harping on this very esoteric interpretation of it, rather than what would actually occur in the courts and in reality. So they're gaslighting the entire state of Oklahoma right now.
How
basically.
sad. How very, very sad.
Yeah. So I think that Oklahomans are smart enough, though, to look past that.
There's a lot of common sense out here,
Right.
One would think they will see
Yeah.
through this.
One of the things that when I talk to people, is one of the major issues is pain management, opioids, gabinoids, having to deal with the fact that they're just not working for neuropathic pain. They're not working for their migraines, or people that opioids might work for, but they're tired of the tolerance levels that they're at, and they're tired of risking overdose if they take the amount that actually works for them. So that's really the number one issue that on the campaign trail we hear about, and I believe that in Oklahoma we can significantly reduce our rates of opioid abuse and related deaths. And really it's the issue I'm fighting for at this point, because my father has neuropathic pain issues, and he's on that same slew of pharmaceuticals.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your dad and your family for that.
Well, he's doing better, as long as he's happy. But I'd rather him be on something that there's no risk of overdose, because, be it as I might, I can't get him to stop drinking. So marijuana is much safer.
Much
and alcohol,
safer.
You can go down the street and buy it at any time, and I can't stop him. So
Isn't that awful? Like, statistically, marijuana has never killed anyone, and yet we have booze that you can buy at the gas station.
Oh, yeah, and the crazy part is they're also saying, they keep harping on Colorado as some dystopian wasteland where, everybody's driving around impaired and fatality rates are spiking, and the crimes, I think they said MS-13, there's cartel, like gang presence, So,
Actually, that's not even true. I was told that one of the reasons these Mexican cartels and other, gangs, whatever, are pushing harder drugs is because we do have medicinal marijuana and legal marijuana now in certain areas of our country. And so the marijuana doesn't make them as much money as it used to. So that's a fallacy to think that they're involved in the marijuana, and especially the medical marijuana trade, as much as other ways to make money.
And if you look at the law, it requires you have to be an Oklahoma resident. I mean, how many of these MS-13 gang members are Oklahoma residents? It's ridiculous to think that the criminals would be involved in this trade, because everyone that wants to get in the industry that I've met is just a regular Oklahoman trying to better themselves and have personal responsibility and make their communities better. It's really absurdity. All of their claims are absurdities. And I think that the impaired driving issue, if you look at the comprehensive data from 1985 to 2014 of all the states that have had medical cannabis programs, driving fatalities actually go down 11% on average. So no one ever mentions that. They're just harping on one data point, and we're ready to knock back in the press, because really the press has been equally confused about some of these claims they're making. So hopefully there will be time to fact check them before June 26th comes up, and we can educate people about what the reality is going to look like instead of this fantasy world they're creating.
I live in Nevada, and we were a medical marijuana legal state. And we also reciprocate. So if you come to Nevada from any other state where your doctor has told you that he or she recommends that you use this plant for your health, we would honor your doctor's recommendation in Nevada. And then we went full on recreational. And the only difference now is that I've noticed there's more patients and recreational users in the dispensaries, but everything is super regulated by our state. I have a friend who actually was an assistant manager at a dispensary, and even when she was being trained, they would have to log in when they left the premises and when they came in and stuff like that. And the state keeps an eye on that. Like, everything is hyper watched over. This idea that all these stoners just show up and your neighborhood turns into a drug den and people are just walking around smoking joints, that doesn't happen. That's absolutely not going to happen. It's a controlled medication.
Exactly, and we've been working with the legislature, our allies in the House and the Senate, and we had a pretty good session earlier this spring, and really we changed a lot of minds, and we disproved a lot of misconceptions up there. And at this point, I believe that the legislature will enact solid regulations, like exactly what you're talking about. And that's really one of the things that a lot of Oklahomans don't realize is that 788 and other medical marijuana initiatives like this are really just shell bills. Like Amendment 20 in Colorado didn't have all the regulations. It just enacted the rights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the problems we're facing, too, is people don't realize there will be rules for edibles, regulations for dispensaries, exactly what you're talking about.
Right. And everything is very much watched over, like I said, because nobody wants to take chances on these things.
Oh, yeah. When they did the initial checks to test dispensaries, I think it was in Oregon or somewhere, I think basically all of them passed. Trying to get a minor in there that gets cannabis legally at a recreational dispensary. Kind of the same thing they do with secret shoppers.
Oh, like for cigarettes and booze and stuff like that?
Yeah, cigarettes and booze, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
I've never heard of a dispensary failing one of those tests.
No, because as a medical card holder, it's been my experience. You go in, you are checked first at the front door by a receptionist, and everything is entered into computers. Everything is double checked. If you don't have your recommendation with you, you will not be admitted. If you don't have your driver license with you, you will not be admitted. Everything is extremely protective in those dispensaries. It's not like kids are just coming in their school uniforms and buying edibles to go get high after algebra. That kind of stuff is not going to happen because those dispensaries will be closed down immediately, and a lot of people will lose their rights.
The concern is also the home grow program and the belief that you can grow a 100-pound plant. A DEA agent is going around churches and other little society clubs and telling people that a home grow can produce a 100-pound plant, and that 100 pounds will go into the black market.
That is ridiculous. That's absolute fake news. That's fake news.
And as we both know, that's impossible.
Yeah.
There's a correlation between wattage and how much product that a plant can produce. And there's no way that you could pump enough wattage even to produce a plant like that in a home grow. So,
well, hopefully there's enough farmers.
Even then, the limits are, like, I think I've seen people on the range of 2 pounds for standard grows is the outer limits. That's an outlier.
I would hope the agricultural families living here in Oklahoma smile politely because they're such good citizens and kind folk, and just get in their cars and laugh the whole ride home at that nonsense.
Right, and I think so too. It's just modern reefer madness is all that it is.
Wow. Well, who are some legislatures who have been helpful with your pursuit?
Well, it took a lot of, effort and time and energy. We had multiple people and groups lobbying up there from every perspective: veterans, right, left, lobbyists, business community, libertarians, and you name it, teachers. And I think ultimately we won a few folks over. We have enough allies. I really appreciate Representative Jon Echols, who's the House Majority Leader.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the news just a few days back basically saying that the House, should this pass, will effectuate the will of the people. They're not going to add qualifying conditions. They're not going to eliminate the important parts of the program. So we really have a lot of faith in our leaders and allies that we have there. We trust them because they see the writing on the wall. They see the difference that it's made in people's lives, in their families and outside. And it's just a few kind of authoritarian diehards like Senator Yin, who's backed by the pharmaceutical companies, by the Oklahoma Medical Association, which is all highly invested in the existing paradigm.
I know a little bit about the gentleman you just mentioned, and he seems like sort of a mess. He seems very paid off.
Oh, he's definitely, in his own mind, he just has a God complex. He thinks that he is the medical authority in Oklahoma, and that he's the one that basically should be making any medical-related decisions through the legislature. And he just gets paid by people because he satisfies their agenda.
Right.
And so they support his campaign. And I have some respect for him because he's a scientist. He just has zero compassion and empathy. And that's the problem with the people that are in control, is they don't have empathy. They don't have compassion. they've lost these basic human traits. They live in a bubble. And I've been lobbying a lot, and even the ones that have empathy and compassion still, they get lost in the rat race. And I think that Oklahoma in general is about, because this is kind of a bellwether of a coming change in a way, and it's in our state, because there's a massive electoral shift occurring now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had since January, we have doubled the number of voter registrations since 4 years ago.
Wow.
And the majority of those have been independents or libertarians. So there's a major shift away from the existing status quo and the existing leadership in particular. And the smart Republicans have seen the writing on the wall and are at least adopting a pro-cannabis message.
Well, yeah, there does seem to be a shift towards people being more constitutionally savvy, and many of us are trying to protect it instead of special interests or just party affiliation.
Oh, yes. And, that's definitely a problem here, is that people have failed to realize that ultimately there's nothing small government about prohibition. And it's just, there's still a cognitive dissonance there. They just can't make that leap. But unfortunately, I think that they'll be around for a while, but at this point, we're the majority, so it doesn't matter.
I like the way you think. I like the way you think. I like that a lot. I'm right there with you, brother.
Well, I gotta be optimistic. I mean, really, the time to lose was two years ago when we had no money and we were gathering signatures, and that was the low probability event. Now things look good.
People are more awake. People are more aware of what's going on. I do feel you're right. As the state's approaching, because June 26th is the date, so you've got 6 days. Today's June 20. You've got 6 days. So what message do you want Oklahomans to hear right now as you're approaching this finish line for this vote?
Well, I want everyone to know that the opposition is pushing hard, and they're trying to manipulate people. So we need to be pushing as hard as we can. We should leave no one we meet during any day of our lives unaware of SQ 788, and make sure they are educated if they're undecided. And beyond that, donate if you can. We're going to be pushing hard after June 26th, because we're going to win this no matter what, as long as you get out to vote and make sure your friends and family get out to vote. And then we're going to push harder to make sure that we elect pro-cannabis candidates in November. So that's the important message, is vote and stay active.
Those are very good messages. This is the will of the people. I know that you have an overwhelming majority of Oklahomans want this to pass. So I hope everybody shows up. And I hope that President Trump getting involved, and perhaps he stated that he might lift the ban on hemp. That might actually help y'all too. Because I know you want to grow hemp here, and it's going to make a lot of money for Oklahoma. So this is all kind of involved.
Oh, yeah. I think that there's a tipping point that the country as a whole is about to reach. And I hope that Oklahoma can be part of that tipping point.
I hope so, too.
I think that we will.
I hope so, too. Thanks for all the hard work you're doing, Frank Grove, you and your peers over there at Oklahomans for Cannabis and Oklahomans for Health.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Lisa. In the future, we're going to keep moving forward, and Oklahomans for Cannabis will become a cooperative to basically support nonprofits, consulting, and other services for them. Also kind of get growers to have low-income programs for patients that can't afford product, other kind of tasks like that. So beyond the scope of the political stuff, we want to make sure the market in Oklahoma works for everybody. So that's where we're headed.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks a ton, Lisa. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, too. Thanks for speaking with me and my listeners, Frank Grove, and thanks for what you're doing for the good people of Oklahoma. Y'all show up to vote for Frank's daddy, and show up to vote for all the veterans suffering from their PTSD and their combat injuries, and show up for all the kids with epilepsy and all those people suffering from cancer and ADHD, and the list goes on, because that Big Pharma stuff is a whack. And please also sign up at my newsletter. You can receive a free audio download if you do that. Go to lisalandry.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll know when each new podcast drops every Wednesday. And we will have Frank Grove coming back to speak in the future. So if you sign up for my YouTube channel, you'll know when that happens. Shout out Ari Bear. I don't think you remember Oklahoma. We've been here a few times together, sunshine. They're really fun people. It's a great state. They actually wrote a musical about it. But I don't think a lot of Oklahomans actually go to the theater and watch that stuff. They're too busy outside on their horses and on their farms. They're cool like that. I love you, my little cowboy.